Hey guys, we're going to be potting up a couple of Haworthias today. These are two of my absolute favorite varieties. I've got Haworthia Cooperi Truncata, and then we're also potting up this Haworthia Cymbiformis variety Obtusa, which is another gorgeous one. Let's get this one out of the pot and see what, oh my, wow. Look at those roots on there. Those white roots, those are all live, healthy. So this is when they're growing right now. Haworthias are somewhat winter growers, although I don't want to specify just winter because they will actually grow year round, and they'll just take a little break, you know, a rest, kind of their dormancy period in the heat of summer. So wintertime is when you'll see a lot of the Haworthias coming into the nurseries. So right now is a perfect time to go out to the nurseries and go see if you can find some. And they're quite small, you know, they stay very diminutive, very small, and they're excellent for growing indoors. So if you have like a low light situation, not that they'll thrive in low light, but you know, they prefer bright indirect light and even a little bit of filtered sunlight, like filtered morning sunlight. What's interesting about Haworthias is for the size of their little plant bodies, you know, they're pretty small. They have quite large, thick roots. So you can see some of the roots on there, like that. Like that there is a big old root. And then around this side, like that's pretty fat for, you know, like a little tiny rosette like that. Okay, so I'm just gonna leave it like that. I tried to release as much of the soil as I could without breaking any of these main roots. It's got a lot of roots all around here, especially up at the crown. Okay, I've got a couple of options for pots. These are both terracotta pots. I just grabbed them both because I wasn't sure how deep that root system was gonna go, but it could actually fit into either of these pretty well, but I think I'm gonna go with this larger one here. And that way the roots will have plenty of room because it is in its growing season right now, and so that way they'll have plenty of room to be expanding out and regenerating any new roots. Okay, for soil I've got 2 parts pumice, 1 part turfus, which is a fired clay or calcined clay, and 1 part coconut coir, and this is the really husky kind. What I mean by that is it's really fibrous, like the longer fibers, not like the peat kind. The really fine, you know, peat stuff holds a lot of water, and I don't want that in there. So we're just gonna mix these all together. And I'll see, usually I kind of do it by eye almost and just feel. And after a while of mixing your own soil, you sort of get a feel for, you know, the plant that you're going to be potting it in, and if you feel like it's going to need more moisture retention versus the grittiness that you're using. So mix this all together. Oh, I forgot to mention that the pumice is sifted, so there's no fines in it, the sand part. So I sifted all of that out ahead of time. I'm going to add just a pinch of Elamite. So Elamite is volcanic ash that I just want to test out with the Haworthias and see kind of like how the plants react to it. So I can always do an update in the future on using that. So volcanic ash is kind of like a natural fertilizer, just straight from the earth, and it just replenishes the soils with, you know, trace elements of nutrients for the plants. So I'm going to use my piece of screen here and place that over the drainage hole just to help prevent any soil from escaping through there. And we'll fill it up. I feel like the roots were just so bound up around that crown of it that once it gets into this new larger pot, it's just going to take off, putting out tons of new babies. I hope you're going to like your new soil, baby, because this is especially mixed for you. Okay, for top dressing, I'm using turfus, and I screened this just now too, so they're all fairly uniform in size. I just screened out the small, the fines of it, like the more sand-like bits of it. We don't really have to worry that much about, you know, our soil today because we're using such a gritty mix, but if you have like a more rich soil, and you don't want your succulent leaves laying on the soil, you can just take a little brush and just work your top dressing under there, and it helps protect the leaves from excess moisture. Although it's not a big deal for us today because our soil is mostly pumice. Okay, I'm gonna have to get ready to go pretty soon here because I'm going to a the Tucson Cactus and Succulent Society meeting. And I'm probably going to get a membership there. It's the first time I'm going to one of the meetings here. Okay, we've got our Haworthia Cymbiformis Obtusa potted up, and I'm gonna have to wrap it up for this video, or no, I'll be back. I'm just wrapping up this clip for now, and then when we come back tomorrow morning, we will finish potting up our Haworthia Cooperi Truncata. Hey guys, we're back and we're going to continue on with our potting up. It's the next day. I'm outside. I decided to mix up a different kind of soil for our next Haworthia, the Cooperi Truncata. I've got 1 part pumice that's sifted to about, the size of this is about 3 to 5 millimeters. And then I've got 1 part turfus. So I'm going to mix together these two. All right guys, let's head back inside and we're gonna get potting up our Haworthia. I can't wait to see the soil in here. I know what it consists of, but I just wanna see exactly how much they put in of each. So this is from Arid Lands Greenhouse, where I bought this from, which is a great, it's a wholesale and retail succulent and cactus nursery, and here in Tucson. So I was asking one of the workers there about their mix, and they said for a lot of the succulents, you know, including this one, that they generally use 1 part of each, pumice, potting soil, and coconut coir. So just like the really chippy kind, the small chips of coconut coir, so not the peat, not the fine peat that we talked about earlier. The roots are looking really good on this one. You guys, look at those roots. Do you see how tuberous those are? Those hold a lot of nutrients and moisture for the plant too. So not only do Haworthias hold their nutrients up in their leaves, you know, the fleshy, really succulent leaves, they also will hold it in their roots, and then they will use up all of the nutrients from one root, and they'll let that kind of, you know, just die off, and they'll end up saving, you know, nutrients in a new root. And so that's why they're so big and tuberous, because they have evolved to be able to do that with their roots too. But they're absolutely amazing, gorgeous plants. Let's pot it up in this little squatty body here. That one I think will be good. And because the roots on Haworthias are quite big, you know, for the size of the plant, you want to make sure it has enough depth to the pot. Let's just see. I'll probably have it up about this high. So yeah, it looks like it has a couple inches before its longest root would touch the bottom of the pot. So I can always pot it up again, you know, next year, next growing season. But I think it should be able to stay in here for a while. Oh, you know, I didn't add my Elamite. Yeah, let's go ahead and add a pinch of Elamite. Just a pinch. Found my little paintbrush to my little fan brush, which I was noticing this one is getting a little beat up. I should probably replace that sometime. It's got some older leaves here that are starting to dry up. If I come in closer, you might be able to see that. So that one, it's just, you know, it's kind of an older one that's lost all of its juice inside. And I see these two are starting to do that too, but they are the outer leaves, and it wasn't in wet soil. It doesn't appear to be overwatered, and I haven't watered it since I've owned it. That's the main thing, is that it's putting out new healthy center leaves, but it looks like it's just losing some of these older leaves. With these plants in the wild, in nature, they actually grow kind of semi-subterranean, so they grow with just the tips, kind of the window tips of their leaves poking out of the soil. But we're not going to be planting it like that in cultivation, or, you know, when you're growing it in your house. Growing it in a pot is a lot different than when it's growing out in the wild in its natural habitat. So we don't want to plant it with the crown buried in the soil how it would grow in nature, because that could cause crown rot. So we want to plant it with the crown above the soil, where it's not prone to being near moisture, where it's going to create rot. I'm going to top it off with a little bit of turfus, just pure sifted turfus. So I'm using the larger granules. And you could leave your top dressing, if you're already using a gritty mix like this, you know, with the pumice, you could leave that as your top dressing. I mean, it actually looks, you know, I think it looks nice. But I love the look of the turfus too, with the clay pots, so We're gonna do that this time. And just in case we got any debris, which we did right in between the leaves there, those lower leaves. Sometimes it's tough to get it out there. Those leaves sort of grip onto any debris that gets in there. I think we're good now. Hey guys, just wanted to give you a little update on the Haworthias we potted up. That was actually a few days ago now. It was before the weekend and it is now Monday, so I just wanted to update you on them. Here's the Cymbiformis Obtusa that we potted up, doing well. It already feels like it's in there pretty well. You know, it already feels like its roots are starting to grab onto its new soil. And then our little Cooperi Truncata. I'll insert some pics here of the Cooperi Truncata when it was in the sunlight this morning. I had it up on the windowsill just early this morning when the sun was first coming in, and when it's backlit it just shows the leaves so beautifully in the windows. The tip of the leaves are translucent, kind of semi-transparent, and that helps with their photosynthesis. So because they're so fleshy and they want to soak up as much light as possible, but because they're so fleshy, a lot of their chlorophyll is deep inside the leaves. So they have those windows to be able to allow the sun or the bright light inside to reach the chlorophyll so they can photosynthesize more efficiently. But they are gorgeous when they're backlit and the sun is kind of shining on them. Is this thing moving? What are you doing? Do not try to reach for my Cymbiformis. No. We're gonna have to, here, you better, I felt like it was just moving there. It might have been me touching the desk, but still, look at that little vine reaching for my Haworthia over there. Yeah, we're gonna have to get you on these are quite vigorous climbers, and that's definitely gonna have to go on to, I think I might use like a cholla skeleton or something. We're gonna have to come up with something really fast because that one is ready to just take off growing there. It's already got its other vine growing up there. That's a new plant, but we're not doing a video on that quite yet, but it is another caduciform plant. So it's got its little chunky base in there, which is the coolest part of that plant, but we'll have to share more about that in another video because this is all about Haworthias. So this is a Turgida. I think that's how you say it. I'm not a professional when it comes to Latin, so if I mispronounce anything, feel free to let me know. I'm always interested in learning everything I can. It's always fun to be on here with you guys and learning together. So this one's got a little baby here. That one I potted up a while ago and it seems to really be quite happy in its new pot with its new gritty soil. So one thing about Haworthias is they make awesome houseplants because they can take lower light. Now when I say low light, I don't mean no light. They need light, but they don't have to have as, you know, bright, intense light how, you know, like echeverias might, or, you know, a lot of other succulents. So they can, as far as succulents go, they can take a lower light, but they do prefer medium to bright light. So, and you know, a little bit of filtered sun is good for them too in the early morning, but you want to be careful not to sunburn them, especially if they're not used to it. So I did have these up early in the morning up on the windowsill, but once it starts warming up, I move them down because the sun is too intense for a lot of Haworthias. They like bright, indirect light. Right next to the window like that, they'll burn pretty quickly, so you gotta watch out for that. Oh, I'm in a south-facing window here. So this is south, and as the sun kind of moves along throughout the day, they get less and less filtered sunlight coming through, so that works out perfect because then once it heats up, you know, like high noon into the hotter afternoon, when the sun's more intense, this is all shaded, but it's still really bright, so they get a good amount of light. As far as how often to water is going to depend on the type of pot, the potting medium that you're using, you know, the soil that you're using, and also your environment, your climate. They're pretty easy to care for as long as you just, you know, take into consideration what kind you have, how thick and fleshy the leaves are. So the really fleshy leaves, you want to water less. You want them to be able to dry out in between waterings. And just know that their roots are holding a lot of water as well as their leaves, so you just want them to be able to have fast draining soil and dry out in between waterings. So the best way that that I like to do, you know, as far as the method to check if they need watering, especially if you have a top dressing, instead of, you know, poking your finger down in there, I just pick up the pot. That's just pretty easy because, you know, if you just pay attention to the weight of the pot when you first pot it up into dry soil, with the plant. You can pick it up and kind of heft it, and you'll have a feel for what it is like when it's completely dry in there versus when you water it. You're gonna feel that difference in the weight of the pot. So I just let mine dry out before watering again. And most Haworthias are considered winter growers, so right now is a great time to, go out to the nurseries and find them there. They'll have some great deals, if you look around, and you can find some really beautiful ones. Some are a little more specialty, like this one I was able to find, the Cymbiformis obtusa. I was able to find at kind of a standard nursery. I got that at Green Things here in Tucson. But this one, the Cooperi Truncata, a little harder to find because I guess it's considered to be a little bit more difficult to grow. But I found that one at Arid Lands Greenhouse in Tucson, and they carry a lot of specialty succulents that can be hard to find there. Oh, here we go. Forgot I had one other Haworthia here. So there's the main kind of species of Haworthias and then the different varieties in each. So this is a regular Cooperi, and then Cooperi Truncata, so you can see the difference in the leaves of those. And then the Turgida, Haworthia Turgida, which has much more pointier leaves. It kind of reminds me of a lotus, but a really gorgeous rosette, and it has really beautiful windows on there too at the very top. The windows well, they show up differently, in the lighting. The Cooperi Truncata with the really bubbly leaves, that one really stands out with the backlighting. This one, the windows are more, just on the top, so you're not able to get the same kind of side angle as some of the other ones, but still really beautiful. Hopefully you're able to see right down at the base of these two yellow leaves here. Those are the ones I was concerned about, but they're not squishy at all. They're still firm. And then right at the base, you can see it's just kind of shriveling up. So I think that the plant is just taking all the nutrients and moisture out of those older leaves and pulling it back into the main part of the plant. I think it's just a natural mechanism that it does with its older leaves. It just kind of reabsorbs them and lets those go dry while it's putting its energy and its moisture into the brand new leaves. But also I think the reason, or what can trigger that, is when the plant leaves are covered up and they don't have access to light. So when I purchased this, right when I was checking out, they were showing me, the different types of soil that they were using, the different components of it, and the lady had thrown a handful of pumice over the top of this, kind of like the top outer edge, and these were covered. And I didn't really pay much attention. I didn't uncover it right away. I didn't pot it up right away. It took me, a little while before we actually got around to potting it up. And so I think that's what happened, was the plant just sort of was triggered and was like, okay, we're doing away with these old leaves that are covered up under the soil. We're going to pull that nutrients and that moisture back into the plant so it can reuse that energy. And it just lets those old leaves that are covered up, completely, it just lets those dry up. So in a way, I think these plants have a natural sort of built-in intelligence where they're able to sense when there's a part of them that is no longer serving them, and they just do away with them, pull that energy out, put it back into the main part of the plant, just as a survival mechanism. And even though these are older leaves, since they're on the outside, and they can, they cycle out old leaves and produce new leaves, I think that these still would have been on there and perfectly fine had they not been covered by the pumice that was thrown on top of it. So that's just my theory, just kind of watching it. Oh, hold on one sec, I just need to flip this around, rotate it. I'm just trying to protect the base. I don't want the base getting in the sun too much, because that's actually why they grow these really leafy, well, it's a vining caduciform plant. It's the Gyrodanthus macrorhizis, and it's got these beautiful leaves on it. It's really lush when it starts really growing. This is just a little baby seedling. It's so sweet. It's growing perfectly straight, and it's, nice and even and everything. So that's why I'm just rotating it and keeping it as straight as possible. So as soon as I see the leaves start to tilt one direction towards the sunlight, I give it a little turn so it can grow nice and straight. But yeah, that's I should do a video sometime on all my favorite caduciform plants. They're basically like the fat plants of the plant world, So any plant that has, like this one's gonna get a really fat bulb on it. That's called the caudex, by the way, down at the bottom there. So once that base, that caudex, starts growing, it grows nice and wide. And then this one's another vining caduciform plant. You can see its little body in there. The leaves protect their caudex from the sunlight. So you want to make sure you don't get that sunburn. I do have another Haworthia out in the front room, but it's a totally different kind, and I feel like I mean, they're so different from each other. It's not one of these fleshy leaved ones, so I figure I'll do a different video on that. It's one of the zebra plant ones, the Haworthia attenuata. Alright guys, I'll let you go for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I'm getting ready to pot up a couple of other babies over here, these lithops. So this one here, Olivaceae and Charismontana. That one just finished blooming. So those are going to be in an upcoming video, potting those up. I've got this cool pumice planter that I thought would be really neat for at least the Olivaceae lithops, so I'll probably use that. And this thing, don't even think of reaching for my other babies. I'm gonna have to go get that Choya cactus skeleton for you to climb up. Alright guys, I'll let you go. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye guys.